My guest tonight is a comedian who's appeared in numerous films, including Getting to the Greek and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Now he has his own weekly podcast entitled Under the Skin. That's a podcast I'd listen to. He has a fascinating mind. Please welcome Russell Brand. Russell, how are you?
Sometimes I feel like part of the lockdown is I'm finding it difficult to motivate myself.
I can tell by looking at you.
Are you an expert in body language?
I am. Well, I don't think you have to be an expert in body language to know that you look like a 90-year-old woman recovering from a stroke. Are you okay?
Actually, I feel very optimistic and full of beams and vim and vigor and vitality.
Okay, good. You've got vim, vitality, and vigor. You're full of beans. No one's talked that way in 60 years, Russell. I love your outfit. You're wrapped in towels, it looks like. What's happening?
This is my most favorite blanket, bequeathed to me by Mahatma Gandhi. Not directly. It was someone took it in East London when he visited, and you can almost smell the transcendence. I think it's transcendent. But anyway, it's delicious. Yeah.
Sometimes when you use a harsh detergent, you can wash out the transcendence. I'm glad you didn't do that.
Must.
It's a mistake a lot of people make.
So we have a lot to talk about. First of all, let me make it clear to my...
Okay, how are you?
Jeff.
Jeff's is your producer Jeff just chatting to his family, Conan, while you try to continue arduously with your job?
I am the opposite of it.
Jeff!
Although I am...
Someone call Jeff and tell him to shut up. Here, I'll call him right now. Jeff, we're trying to do an interview here, and we're hearing everything you're saying.
That's because I had my mic on. Sorry.
Yes, I know. Over and out. Oh, my God. Russell, I apologize. That was incredibly unprofessional. Not up to the standards that you've set with the way you're dressing and the way you're lying down.
I come here onto your show in the blanket of a Latter-day Saint, and you insult me with Jeff leaving his mic on Zoom?
Terrible. Let me set the table for our viewers, Russell. You are in London right now, is that correct?
I'm in the countryside outside of London, where some years ago I escaped to bucolic bliss, to have a family and to explore different states of consciousness without chemicals.
Very nice. And how's that working for you?
I miss the chemicals. I miss London.
So you're married now and you have children, is that right?
Yeah, I've got 2 children, and I didn't know how much feces would be involved, Conan.
Uh-huh. Yes, they tend to do that, yes.
Very grounding, isn't it?
Well, yes. I have 2 children, but they're older now. They're teenagers, and there's still quite a lot of feces. I'll be honest with you. That's something that happens well into adulthood.
I'm looking forward to at least a decade and a half of excretia.
Okay. Well, listen, here's what I want to get to, Russell. When I first met you, you were a wild man. You wore tight leather pants. You prowled the streets like a lion. You were very sexually active. And in fact, you talked very frankly about your sex addiction. And now look at you, wrapped like a saint in white blankets, in bucolic bliss in the countryside with a wife and children. What was that transition like?
In a way, it's a cliched journey, isn't it? From excess to conversion and to the embrace of the spiritual life. But what I was told is that all of these energies we put into drugs and promiscuity are yearning for a kind of wholeness, a connection to the limitless, access to the sacred and the divine. If you can't get those things, simply acquire yourself a blanket and wait for time to pass.
You know, I read that once on a box of herbal tea. It sounds like a cliche, but it's just true. There's a hole in all of us that makes us see. That's probably why you and I got into comedy, isn't it?
Yes, I think initially I was drawn to comedy for approval, for the possibility of of orgasm, primarily.
You not on stage. You didn't want to have the orgasm on stage, did you? You just meant that comedy would lead you towards the opposite sex, and then there'd probably be an orgasm.
I wonder how many of human endeavors, from manned space flight to the advent of the spinning jenny in Victorian London, do you think were ultimately motivated by the need for that kind of fulfillment, that manner of fulfillment?
Russell, I agree. I think the Wright brothers built that plane just to get laid. I really do. I think they wanted to fly to a nearby farm, impress the ladies with their flying machine, and then Wilbur and Orville were going to get it on with some of the local ladies.
I think if we'd explained to Wilbur and Orville, this, in your case, will not lead to sexual opportunity, just being an answer in Trivial Pursuit and disappointment, maybe they wouldn't have bothered, you know.
Yeah. Maybe they wouldn't have built the plane. We wouldn't have an airplane now if it wasn't for a human need for sex.
It could be seen as the drive behind many, many things. But I suppose my point, though, Conan, and I'll sweep my blanket behind my ear to make it.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that.
Who's doing your hair? How are you managing to maintain?
I've been maintaining this myself since high school. I get up in the morning and it takes very little work. A little mayonnaise, a baker's kiln, about 45 minutes at 600 degrees, and look, it's done. Look at that.
That's an incredible scalp that you've got there. And I must say that for you to maintain those standards, I didn't imagine that this would be something that you'd be able to sustain during the lockdown. I thought the first thing to go would be the altitude of your quiff.
This is my way of supporting the world. This is my way of showing that we cannot give up. We cannot give in. This is my statement.
Your hair follicles are like the ravens in the tower at the Tower of London. As long as your hair follicles are upright, we are okay.
Yes.
Like Churchill's cigar was a mighty phallic symbol, a sort of tobacco penis in the face of Nazi Germany. Your hair, that magnificent Auburn edifice, is a wall that will protect us, if not from the virus itself, then certainly from the dispiriting effects of the virus.
You know, Russell, that's so kind, but I do think you hit the nail on the head. My quiff, as you call it, my pompadour, this massive Belgian pastry that I wear on my head, is my defiance. It is my way of saying, stand back, virus, you shall not pass.
Yeah, no passa nada. Well done. I mean, it's like a henge. I think in generations to come, druids may gather round what remains of that glorious statue.
Of my hair. Now, Russell, I have to ask you, are you still wearing the tight leather trousers? Because you wore them very well, and I say that with great respect, but no one rocked leather trousers like you. But now I see you almost in this Mother Teresa mode. Do you still break out the leather trousers every now and then?
I became vegan some time ago due to the nagging, the constant cultural nagging to become vegan. And so, I do have tight, uncomfortable, age-inappropriate leg wear that I can slip on if I'm required to perform live. But they're not leather anymore. And look, what is the myth of the wild man? Who is the wild man? The wild man is a figure that we need to maintain in culture because we know in our hearts that civilization is temporary. Osho, the great sage, and some would say crackpot, said, what is civilization but a clearing in the forest? And now, isn't it becoming evident, clear, that all of our constructs, all of our concepts, all of our systems, our civilization is crumbling around us? What then if you have no access to the wild man? What then if you can't call upon a bearded gentleman in pleather trousers to thrust you forward into a revolutionary new era? What then, I ask you, Conan?
Okay, Russell, while you were ranting, I called the police and the medic. They're going to break down your door in about 2 minutes. Just go with them, and when they give you a pill, take it, and you'll have a nice sleep, okay?
The British constabulary would have more respect than to arrest an Englishman in his own home beneath his own blanket. Certainly at the behest of you, an Irish descended living monument to paganism.
Now, I'm told that, are we limited somewhat by the life of your battery of your computer? Is that right? Your battery is running low. Is that correct?
No, the reason I'm the only limitation is, the limitations that have already been placed upon us, and the fact that this phone is plugged into the wall, which prohibits my motion more than I would like. But to be honest, Conan, what would I do? Would I be pirouetting around the room? I mean,
right. What would one do? I like you this way. You're very Christ-like.
Thank you.
You are a Buddha. You represent all religions in this mode right now.
Perennialism, Aldous Huxley called that, recognizing the underlying archetypal connections that unify all theology and religious faiths.
Guess what? You're on American television. You have to dumb it down. Okay?
American television. I remember that.
Let's talk about your podcast. I love that you have a podcast because you have a very perceptive mind. I've always enjoyed talking to you. Are you trying to probe what's really going on under the surface of the people you're discussing? And do you find that you're very good at it? I would think you would be.
This podcast I do on a platform called Luminary that requires that people subscribe to it. What I do on there is I talk to people that have a kind of areas of expertise and advanced knowledge. And I try to convert it into language that anybody would understand. Now, you've already bellowed directly to camera that I need to be less esoteric, and you've also threatened to call the police. But what I do in Under the Skin is I'm genuinely trying to investigate the possibility of organizing systems in a different way, talking to astrophysicists, political professors, philosophers, and my hope, Conan, is that it's somewhat humorous and accessible to all. That's the point of Under the Skin. I would like to have you on the show if you would deign to be on it. I would like to investigate you. I would like to understand you.
Just for our viewers right now, could you give me just a thumbnail sketch of what's happening with Conan O'Brien through the laser-like glare of Russell Brand?
You are a puckish figure, and whilst you present yourself as accessible and warm, you have a deep sense of comic mischief, which can lead to destruction. I would sense possibly in your home life, I imagine your wife detests you. And I think that you're probably only one malt-based drink away from wreaking havoc on yourself, your family, and your nation. Like, to be a trickster is to be destructive. And it's like, thank God that the profession of talk show host was invented, because what would you do? Just talk about that monorail episode of The Simpsons for the rest of your life? Like, you'd bring down the government. You'd be a dangerous man. There's a seam of radicalism in you, and I'd be interested in investigating that. But I also know you're very warm-hearted and very beautiful and compassionate and real. So I'd probably explore that in the sort of last 10 minutes.
But you hit the nail on the head, yes. Especially not only the wife, but the children as well. There is a loathing just beneath the surface, especially now that we're quarantined together. It's no coincidence that when I walk into a room, they walk out of the room, and quickly.
What do we do? I mean, at least you probably had a family at a normal age. I sort of
lie down here. I want to match what you're doing as best I can to try and create a homeostasis, if you will. We're in this together.
It looks like something from Inception because of the way you've organized your camera.
Yeah. Anyone who's just tuning in doesn't know what's happening. We look like two old druids in a sauna together.
Beautifully cocooned hostages of misfortune is how I would describe us, Conan.
Russell, I have to be honest with you. It's hard for me not to go to a sensual place. It's as if I were lying alone with you in a bed in the countryside outside London. So naturally, one's mind starts to wander. One starts to imagine, well, this is what it would be like to be lying in bed with Russell Brand.
We would have fantastic pillow talk, you and I. I mean, the conjugation itself, I think, would be possibly repulsive. But after we've got through that ordeal, my God, the chat, the analysis afterwards. What were you thinking during that bit, Conan? I don't know. I just went with it.
Wait,
you really knocked me off of my sedan chair.
First of all, you're correct. Whatever we managed to do together physically, it would not go well. It would be awkward, and there'd be a lot of apologies afterwards.
We're very limby, mate. And I've got long limbs. You've got long limbs. There would be elbows and knees clacking about.
We'd be like two lab skeletons that were thrown down a hill together. That's what it would sound like if we went at
like
it.
Like Meccano with ham just sprinkled in hair.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that it looks like you're enjoying your existence as the docile, connected husband, father. Yes? Is this correct?
I enjoyed being sort of a famous person for a while, and I enjoyed the excitement and approval and short-lived accolades, etc. But I felt I'm looking for something more. And don't you think part of the reevaluation that will take place automatically as a result of these extraordinary conditions, dear Conan, my sweet, gentle lover, my strawberry-strewn wonder man, you impish giant, you great languid creature, you living, sparkling emerald river, But people might be tempted to put aside the constructions to which they have been bound and investigate different ways of living. Isn't that a possibility? I think it is a possibility.
Yeah. Well.
Now I feel like I'm straddling you.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. This would be your view. If you were straddling me right now, this would be the view that you would have. Yeah.
You look startled.
Well, I think I would be startled in that situation. Yes. I think, were I to awaken and Russell Brand was straddling me?
I wouldn't do it while you're unconscious. You'd be participating in the entire narrative up to the point of the straddling. I'd like to feel your hands upon my hips, your breath upon my brow.
Well, I promise that if this ever is to happen, I'll be fully conscious.
Thank you. I'd like to make the same pledge. I feel like I might walk around a little bit.
That's good.
If I may, I might go through several lighting conditions.
We're probably going to wrap this up soon. It's been absolutely...
Well, I would imagine that you will. I mean, once we've sort of played out a scenario where we were I'm walking past my kids' rooms. Once we've talked through the straddling scenario, where is there really left for us to go?
You look like a murderer. You look like an intruder in your own home.
Yes. Conan, I feel like an intruder in my own home. I'm a refugee in my own life. There's my lovely wife. There's Conan, look.
Hello.
Hello.
How are
Very
you?
well.
Everyone well?
Very good, thank you. Yeah.
We pass the time with craft activities.
Oh, yes.
Is that the most English thing you've ever seen? There's a hound coordinated with your personal pigmentation.
We call that a dog. We don't call it a hound. Russell, I want to make sure I get this out. Download Under the Skin is a terrific podcast available where?
From Luminary Media.
Russell, I can't wait to see you in the flesh because we have opened a lot of possibilities. Let's put it that way.
Certainly, a portal has been opened and I just hope to God we can shut it.
Russell Brand, an absolute delight. Seriously, thank you very much for doing it. Be well. Thank you for being here. And please apologize to your wife. Seeing my face at any time of day when not expected is horrifying.
Imagine when she gets the context and the straddling stuff. I mean, the poor woman.
All right, take care, Russell.
See you, mate.